My goodness, I thought this was a very busy week for WWE. And then they literally knock down the forbidden door as we are getting ready for the Royal Rumble in a few weeks' time. And Charlotte Flair comes out and she basically says, here's a video package for the women so far declared for the Women's Royal Rumble. And I'm looking at the names. I'm like, okay, the veterans, the Bella Twins. I see Nikki Cash and Rhea Ripley, Carmella, Zelina Vega, Naomi. I see a lot of prime names from today's WWE. And I'm thinking Michelle McCool. Okay, now we're getting back to the 2018 Royal Rumble, Lita. Oh, the good memories. And then Mickie James' name pops up, current Knockouts Women's Champion of Impact Wrestling. And I'm like, wait a minute. Timeout, pause. Is this the right tape? Is this really the 2018 Royal Rumble, or is this today? And then Pat McAfee says Impact Wrestling on WWE TV, and this is real. And WWE just dropped a video package like Beyonce dropped a surprise album. Surprise! Look at all the names we got for the Royal Rumble, and they're unbelievable names. Summer Rae as well is added to this list. I love Summer Rae beefing with Natalya already on Twitter, living back their days on Total Divas. So Summer Rae understands her job to get in Natalya's face at the Rumble in a few weeks' time. But WWE hitting the bat signal and calling Impact Wrestling, of all places, hey guys, I hear you have this forbidden door and anybody can walk through. Can we walk through too? We need some help because we fired too many fucking people last year and we left Mickey's shit in a trash bag at the Thunderdome and we feel bad about it, but we want to offer a make good by having her in the Rumble match as your champion on our show. Let's make it happen. And Impact was more than happy to say, hey, we need the pub, we need the PR, we need the publicity, we need the buzz for our pay-per-view, which was very good last night. And by the way, Hard to Kill, very good show for Impact Wrestling. And here we are in 2022, WWE picked up the phone and called Impact Wrestling. Unbelievable. Steven, what are your thoughts about WWE knocking on the forbidden door and walking through it by calling, of all people, Impact Wrestling?
I was as surprised as everybody else. I had the same moment that you referred to where I was watching it on the DVR and I had to back it up to do the little 6-second backup. I was like, wait a minute, did I just hear Pat McAfee say that? The question is, what does this really mean? Like you said, they fired everybody. It's like they fired all these people and then they were looking around just like, okay, we need 30 names for the Rumble. How many we got? 6. Crap. And they were just like, oh, God. All right, go back. Get the Rolodex out. We can always call Michelle. We can always call Summer Rae's a nice touch, like you said. They brought back the Bellas. They're always around if we can get them. And so Mickie James, it was like they got to 28, 29. Like, oh, God, I think we're going to have to call her. Like we haven't fired. We did fire her. Well, we can just call her and see if she'll come back. And it's interesting to see, does this actually mean anything? Or is it simply a matter of the numbers game where they just had to find 30 women? And I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of NXT women in this. I'm guessing, Cora Jade and some of the others will be making their Rumble debuts, but it does seem like they maybe felt like they needed to make a little bit of a splash and perhaps bringing back, Lay Cool and Kelly and all that. All right, well, we did that a couple of years ago. What would surprise people? Well, Mickie coming back would surprise people, and it did. Will it mean that there's actually some sort of working together going forward? That I'm just not convinced of because WWE Vince sees himself on this other plane where we're not doing really professional wrestling. We're an entertainment conglomerate and we're making movies and we're doing all this stuff we're not pro wrestling. That's for that wrestling stuff is gone and that's beneath us. And so are they going to continue to work with Impact? I don't really see why they would. I don't know the advantage to WWE or the way they would see an advantage to it from the fans' perspective. We would like to see some of it. Moose is already working on it. I don't know if you saw Moose tweeted, hey, Roman Reigns, since there's no forbidden door. Okay, Moose, take care of yourself. I don't see them trying to lift him up at all, but and that's the question. Is like what would be the benefit actually for WWE to continue to do this? It was fun. It was an interesting moment right there. I'm not totally convinced that it wasn't anything more than we need 30 women for the Rumble, and Mickey's one of them.
Yeah, it was definitely a stunning video package that normally you wouldn't pay attention to, and the names just kept rolling and rolling and rolling. Then Mickie James like, oh, record scratch. What? Is this real? But I love it because it gave this match a lot of attention that was kind of lacking because they cut a lot of people and you wondered how they were going to fill 30 slots. And now you have an answer. We still got maybe 11 slots to go in terms of who's going to be in this match, which could provide more surprises. I would love to see an Eve Torres come back, who's been pregnant the last couple of times a Rumble's taken place, so she hasn't been able to be there. I'm wondering, where's Eve at? Oh, she's had another baby. Okay, I can understand that. Forgivable. I do want to see her back, too, as well. Maybe Caitlyn, somebody get on the phone, call some folks up to fill out these spots, but it's really telling that Impact Wrestling has all the keys to all the companies and say, come through. We got a key for you. You need some help? Call us. I love Impact Wrestling in the year 2022 on their 20th anniversary, having the keys to every promotion and being basically an outpost for professional wrestling. So Scott, what are your thoughts on that video package that dropped hyping the Women's Royal Rumble and having Mickie James' name flash on the screen as their current reigning defending knockout women's champion?
I love it. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I called Impact the airport of professional wrestling because everybody goes there and makes a stop. And sometimes when they're making a stop, they just mingle with each other. You know, Jonah, for example, or Bronson Reed, who was in WWE formerly, he's making a stop in Impact as I'm sure he's on his way to New Japan. You know what I mean? Like, that's just what people do in Impact. And I think it's really cool that Impact is kind of like the Switzerland of wrestling. Everybody just kind of goes there and gets along. You know what I mean? Like, it's the neutral spot of wrestling. It seems like they're the only company that is able to genuinely get along with. I think they've opened the door probably more than anybody as far as different companies coming in and out and whatnot. And this WWE thing, that's mind-blowing to some people to think about that, you know? I am curious, you know, Steven, you bring up a good point about what's going to happen with this after the fact, you know, after the match and whatnot. Does Deonna Purrazzo make a surprise appearance and eliminate Mickie James from the Rumble? Does whoever eliminates Mickie James from the Rumble show up in Impact and maybe challenge for the title? Obviously, you wouldn't send like a Charlotte Bayley or somebody like that, but, you know, maybe there's like a Io Shirai or somebody like that, you know, somebody that's on NXT that you're not using on the main roster. Do you let them eliminate a Mickie, send them down to Impact and, you know, kind of give them their match? And then, you know, obviously they swapped. They let Mickie come in and they gave him Tom Phillips. So there's an even trade there. So they got that working for him. I like Tom. So I'm actually really happy for Tom and Impact. I think he's a good fit there. But Steven, I do agree with you. You bring up a good point. What does this mean long term? I would love to see maybe even one or two Impact guys in the Royal Rumble. You know, the chances of that happening, what are they? But I'd love this, even if it's just a guy who has been in WWE before, so you don't have to like introduce him. But I would really like to see that, or even a Gail Kim. I think she's a legend that you could bring back for the women's too and fill that. But I'm with you, Steven. I'm wondering what is the aftermath of this.
Yeah, I just don't see WWE thinking of Impact as something they work with. I think they probably just did it as a favor and say, hey, we'll mention your championship on our TV. That should help, right? You know, and yeah, I mean, it did get the name out in front of more people than watch Impact, so it probably will help. I'm skeptical about WWE working with anyone because they just don't see themselves as being on the same plane as these companies, at least publicly. Their public statements toward AEW are dismissive, let alone toward Impact. I just don't see them doing things to help Impact. Maybe things are changing, but it's Vince, and the idea of him sending Io Shirai down there to get some extra attention for Impact. Maybe Impact negotiated something like that. I'd like to think so. I'd enjoy seeing it. Skeptical as to whether or not WWE would do it.
There's just so much you can do with this. It's like so many like cool interactions. Like, think if MSK happens to show up in the Rumble and Trey Miguel were to show up in the Rumble and you kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I love it. But
I'm with you, Steve. Like, I think you're more than likely right. And this is just me being overly optimistic and just hoping for the best, but I more than likely should be expecting the worst.
And they've done things in the past. It's not impossible. They used to work with New Japan for a while. I mean, if you look way back, you know, they've worked with New Japan way back in the day. They've worked with All Japan before, back back in the 90s and things. But it's been a real while. I think they did some things with Smoky Mountain. They did some things with like that. So I'm not saying it's
Liger
impossible.
was on NXT like 10 years ago.
Yeah, and so it's not impossible, but fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Yep,
yes. If they actually form a relationship that goes beyond what AEW did with Impact last year, that would be very telling. The fact that WWE picked up the phone, gave him a call and said, we need Mickie James, let's go. I would assume that Impact is owed something as compensation. I don't know what that is yet besides name drop our championship. It's got to be something of value to say we got our champ in your Rumble. What do we get in return for our television show?
Right.
It's got to be something. Tom Phillips, which is an upgrade from Matt Striker. That is a big upgrade because Matt Striker, Lord have mercy, no, terrible. But thank God Tom Phillips has a job on Impact, a far superior announcer in our eyes.